What's going on, everybody? American Football Network here with another video today. And today we're bringing you guys our Clemson preview prediction video. But before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe, comment those thoughts and opinions down below. Help us reach that goal of all description for links to our shop, podcast, website, patron page, and our college football roundup channel. We are just, 8 days away from college football as a week from tomorrow, Florida State, Georgia Tech kickoff, week 0. That'll be a big game in Ireland. Excited for that one. Today we have a special guest with us. Ty has joined us today yet again. You can also go check out the Boise State video where he was with us. How you doing today, man?
Hey, doing well. How about yourself?
Doing good. So go ahead and let the audience know where they can find you at and get all your stuff.
Yep. You can find me on X at tshine, TSCHEINE.
All right, so go check him out over there. I'll have that link down in the description and also pinned in the comments for you guys so you can check that out. But today we got our Clemson Tigers preview prediction for you. So let's go ahead and get rolling. For that, I want to start. Clemson comes in ranked number 14 in the preseason AP poll. What are your thoughts on that ranking for them, and where do you expect them to finish at the end of the season?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty – I would have them ranked right in the mid-pack right there, like the 14-15 range. Where I think they're going to finish, we'll get into it. I think they have a shot at winning the ACC and being in the college football playoff, which obviously would get them in the top 12. But I think regardless, they're still going to be a top 25 team come the end of the season. I think it's just going to depend how the season shakes out, if they are in that top 12 or more in that like 15 to 20 range.
I agree. I think it's almost a given that they will be ranked. When you look at last season, you really can't do much worse, especially with the schedule that you got this year. And you went through last year, finished ranked. I think you'll finish ranked again this year. But like you said, I think they have a shot at winning the ACC, and we'll get into it more when we get to the schedule. But I think 14 is a fair ranking. I think in mine I had them at 13 actually. So I had them in the same spot. I think that's about where you put them. You expect them to be better from last year, but how much better you're not sure. So you bump them up a few spots. But when you look at last season for Clemson, they go 9-4 overall, 4-4 in the ACC. Lost week 1 at Duke, 28-7. Lost to Miami in overtime on the road, 28-20. Lost to NC State on the road, 24-17. And then the one that hurt the most was losing to Florida State at home, 31-24 in overtime. You had that game won. You missed the field goal, and that was it. Ended up losing the game. So I look at this schedule, and it seems to be a bit of a more manageable schedule this year than last year. Although you do start out week 1 against Georgia, so you will still have some tough games. But I think all in all, it'll be a little bit of an easier schedule. But what are your thoughts on how Clemson played last season, and what changes do you like that were made over the offseason and just stuff that has progressed with them?
Yeah, obviously the main thing with Clemson, right, is them not using the portal. So we're going to, I think, be interesting to see how they fare this year. But to your point about last season, obviously they had those tough losses, but they also ended the year on a high note, right? They had 5 consecutive wins over, I think Notre Dame, North Carolina, and then the bowl win over Kentucky. So I think they'll be carrying that momentum into this season. I think, we'll get into it. I think this team is really going to go as far as Klubnik can take them, right? Their defense, I have high expectations for. Their defense always plays solid. A second season under Garrett Riley calling the plays, I think, should help out the offense. Maffa's returning. And then they have a few new recruits, the receivers returning as well. The new freshman receivers coming back, taking over where Shipley was. So I think I have high expectations for the offense, and the defense again. I think will hold its own. It's just I think it's just all going to come down to how Cade Klubnik can play.
I agree completely. I think it's pretty much a given, especially here the last 15 years with Clemson, that the defense is going to be a top 10 defense. The defense has always been good enough to win you a national championship. The question is just the offense, and that's why they say you look at Clemson last year, 103rd ranked in yards per play. I think if they're going to win the ACC, they need to jump that up to at least 60. I think they will. I think that they'll probably jump that yards per play up to about maybe 50, which is a jump from about 4.7 yards a play to about 5.2 yards per play when you look at last year's rankings. I think if Clemson is going to be a legitimate contender for a national championship, they're going to have to go from 103 to about top 25 in that. And it's not something that's impossible, but it's not something I'm going to sit here and bank on either. It's something I'm going to have to see it to believe it, because that's a jump from about 4.7 yards a play to about 6.1 yards per play. And that's really been the thing for the offense. And I agree 100% with you. This team's going to go as far as Klubnik can take them, because you have the offensive line and the running backs to run the ball. But you're not going to beat some of these teams, especially like Georgia. You're not going to beat them running the ball 40, 50 times a game. You're going to have to be able to throw the football, and you're going to have to be able to get big plays out of the passing game. I think when I look at these receivers, this is the best receiving core that we've, especially depth-wise, that we've had since, Trevor Lawrence was here. You look, Antonio Williams, hopefully going to be healthy this year. He's going to be a big threat on the outside. Tyler Brown coming back for year 2. He had a huge year for us last year. He was our best receiver by far. Cole Turner coming off injury. Stellato coming off of injury last year. You bring in the big dog, TJ Moore, and also bring in Bryant Wesco. So you have some pieces there at receiver, and especially when you look at tight ends too, with Josh Sapp and the big one, Jake Brenningstool, who may be the best tight end in the ACC.
Yeah.
And they've got some weapons for Klubnik. It's just about what he can do with the football. And he did progress through the season last year. He improved. You didn't always see it. There was some games he took steps back, but he did progress throughout the season last year. You just want him to take another step forward, a bigger step forward this year for sure. And I think that Clemson definitely has a shot at winning the ACC. But let's go ahead and jump in to the schedule. So they start out week 1 at Georgia. What are your thoughts on this game, and who are you taking in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think this will be an exciting game. But I think Georgia. I think Georgia will get the W. I think for Clemson to have any shot, I think Cade's going to have to play mistake-free football, and I think Moffitt's going to have a big game on the ground. Hopefully, the D can keep them in the game. So I think it will be close, but I think this is a W for Georgia.
I agree. I have Georgia winning this game. Clemson definitely can win the game. And a big part of that is, like you said, the defense. I think with that defense, as long as Clemson takes care of the football for the most part, I think with that defense, I think Clemson will cover. I think it's a 14.5 point spread now. I think Clemson will cover that. But it's one of those things. It's where, if Clemson's going to win, Moffa's going to have to run for 100 yards in the game, but Klubnik's also going to have to throw for 250, 300 yards. And with that 253, it's going to have to be like 3 touchdowns, no picks. This is not going to be a game where you can go and turn the ball over 3 times and still get the win, because Georgia is not – I don't think Georgia's going to be as good offensively this year in week 1 as they were last year. I think they'll get to that point at some point in the season, but in week 1, I don't think they'll be there. But Carson Beck is good enough, and he's not going to throw. He's not going to come out and throw 3 picks, which means Clemson can't come out and turn the ball over 3 times. You may get one. You may get 1 turnover out of Georgia. So Clemson has to take care of the ball. If they take care of the ball, they have a shot, especially like we both said with that defense. But if they're turning the ball over, it's not gonna go well for them. So I have this game as a win for Georgia. Then you get the home opener night game against Appalachian State. What are your thoughts on this game, and who do you have winning?
Yeah, I have Clemson getting their first W of the season, but I think it could be a closer game than people think. App State is probably going to be one of the G5 teams vying for that college football playoff spot, and I think they also could be Sun Belt Conference champs. So I think it's going to be a tough game, and obviously we know App State plays P4 teams close, but I think this game being home opener, being at night in Clemson, I think the Tigers should come away with this.
I agree. I think Clemson ends this one with a big win. I think it could be close for a little while, but I think in that second half, Clemson will start to pull away. It's the home opener. 8 o'clock game, especially if you beat Georgia coming into the home opener for the season. The crowd's going to be nuts either way, but if you're coming off a win against Georgia, it's going to be insane. I think that Clemson just has too much talent, and these are the kind of games where it's like, okay, you can turn the ball over 3 times, you're still going to win just because of that defense that you have. You can count on them. You don't want to see 3 turnovers, especially against App State. But I think Clemson is going to get a win, and this is going to be a big game for them. This is a game where they need to really work the kinks out, because when you look at this Clemson schedule, 3 of their first 5 games are against ranked teams, and those are the 3 toughest teams they're going to play all year long. You can't come out of the gate slow if you're the Tigers. You got to come out fast and clicking, because it's going to be tough for you. But, yeah, I agree with you. I have Clemson getting the win against App State. Then you get a bye week. Then you get NC State at home, a team that had your number last year. NC State actually improved a good bit this year. They bring in some new pieces, particularly the quarterback, Grayson McCall. They're another team that's always going to have a solid defense regardless of what they lose. But what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think, this is my first 50-50 game, but I think Clemson should win this game. I think the big thing is really going to have that extra week to prepare. I mean, like you said, obviously, they have McCall, they have good defense. They brought, they have Concepcion at receiver. I think they also brought some running back in from the portal from Duke. But I think Clemson should win this game, even though I think it'll be a close one.
I agree. I think that this will be a closer game. But I do think Clemson will get the win in this one. It's one of those games I think will be closer, but when you look at Clemson being at home and just all the pieces that NC State lost on defense, I don't think they're going to be at the defensive level that they were at in the game last year, this early in the season. I think Clemson's defense will be much more – they're not going to let Concepcion kill them again this year. They're not. They'll put 3 guys on him before they let him do what he did to him last year. It will be tough, though, because McCall is the better quarterback than NC State's had in 2 or 3 years. So that will be tough. But I do think that Clemson will pull off the win. I think it'll be about a 10-point win when it's all said and done. But I do have the Tigers getting the win. Then you play one of the new members of the ACC. You get Stanford at home. What are your thoughts on this game? Who do you have winning?
Yeah, I have the Tigers taking care of business here. I mean, yeah, newcomer Stanford. I think, they're going to have a decent amount of travel, I think, on their schedule this year. This, being in Clemson, I think it'll just be this should be an easy win for the Tigers.
I agree, because when I look at the Stanford team, defensively, they're not great. You look offensively, have a solid quarterback. They have Alec Iamaner, who might end up being one of the best receivers in the league, but that's about all they have. And when you play a defense like Clemson's and you only have one option offensively, it's going to be hard to move the football. I just don't – Iamaner is going to get his yards. But I just don't see much other than that out of Stanford. So I agree with you. I have a win here for Clemson. So we both have them at 3-1, heading into a big game at Florida State. And this is a big game, not just because it's on the road at a ranked team, a team who won the conference last year, beat you in overtime at home last year, but you're playing your former quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, for the Florida State Seminoles. Who do you have winning this game, and what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is another 50-50 game, right? I really could see this game going both ways. FSU, they lost a lot of talent, but also it could be a DJU revenge game. I give the edge to Florida State just because it's going to be in Tallahassee. I wouldn't be surprised if the Tigers win, but I think I'm going to mark it down as a loss just because of the home field for the Seminoles.
I can definitely see that. This is, like you said, a close game. I do have Clemson winning this game. I think it's going to be a tough one. I think it's going to be a close one, just like it was last year. But if anybody knows DJ very well, no, it's Clemson. They know him better than anybody does. Honestly, they know him better than the Florida State staff does at this point in time. I think they'll have his number. The biggest thing for me when I look at Florida State is the losses of Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson hurt a lot. They bring in some solid replacements for them. They bring in Malik Benson. I believe he came from Alabama. So they have some wide receivers, but there's nobody on this Florida State offense that I think is just a game changer. There's no playmakers on this roster that just scare me. Like last year, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, those guys are scary, especially the way Johnny Wilson moved at 6'7". Those guys were scary. I just don't see that on this Florida State team. I think that the offensive line is going to be the strength of this Florida State team, whereas I think the defensive line is the strength of Clemson. So I think that will kind of help offset the biggest strength of Florida State's offense in the run game. We've seen film from DJ throwing passes in practice, and he still just looks like the same old guy. And I don't think the biggest thing is I don't know if he can win a big game like this. I think Clemson squeaks it out, but I think it's I think it's a one possession game in the end. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if they end up losing it. Then they go on the road to Wake Forest. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think Wake Forest improved a little bit this year. I think they added the new quarterback in Bachmeyer, which helped out their offense. But I think they lost a decent amount on defense. And I think just overall, Clemson just has more talent. So I think the Tigers should take care of business.
I agree. Wake Forest not a very good team. They've really gone downhill since Sam Hartman left. And I don't expect a whole lot out of this one. This should be a pretty easy game. Although I say that we only beat them 17-12 last year, so we'll see. We'll see, but should be an easy game and an easy win. Next up, you get Virginia at home, a reunion game for Tony Elliott, the head coach of Virginia. What are your thoughts on this one, and who do you have winning this?
Yeah, again, I think Tigers should take care of business. I think this is actually Elliott's his first time back in Death Valley. So like you said, homecoming game for him. I think Tigers should take care of business first the Cavaliers.
I think that Clemson will get the win, but this is going to be a sneaky game, I think. Tony Elliott coming back. Clemson, at least in recent years, especially under Dabo, they haven't played the best before bye weeks. They've been a little sloppy, a little slouchy before off weeks. That could be something to watch, especially the ones in the middle of the season as opposed to the bye weeks early in the season. So that could be something to watch. In Virginia, they haven't been a good team over the years, but they've had a knack for beating solid teams. Last year, they won 3 games. They beat William and Mary, but they went on the road and beat North Carolina and beat a good Duke team at home. So they don't win very many games, but when they win, they usually get one against a solid team. I think that Anthony Colandrea, solid quarterback for them. Another reunion, Kobe Pace coming back to Clemson, running back for Virginia. And they bring in Chris Tyree, the transfer from Notre Dame. Malachi Fields, a solid receiver. So I do have Clemson winning this game, but it's one that you definitely can't overlook because if you do, Virginia potentially could get a hold of you and get a win. But I do think that Clemson will be more focused in this game just with Tony Elliott coming back. It could be a tough one if you're not careful. Then you do get the bye week. Then Louisville at home. What are your thoughts on this Louisville team in this game? Who do you have winning?
Yeah, again, I mean, Louisville's always tough, right? I mean, Jeff Brom has been doing a really nice job there. But I think, with the extra week of preparation, I think Clemson should pull out the win. Louisville, I think they brought in some decent talent. They had an easy schedule last year. So I think, this year, I think they'll have a little more competitive schedule. And it's in Clemson. So I think, Tigers should pull away.
I agree. I think that I'm not taking any credit away from Louisville. They were a good team last year, but I think when you look at that schedule that they had, that set them up perfectly. They lose a lot. I don't see Louisville being as good this year. I think they win 7-8 games. They're going to make a bowl game. That's just something Jeff Brom does. He's just very consistent. But I don't see him winning 10 games, making the ACC again. I don't think Louisville is going to be as good as they are. Or as good as they were last year. I don't think they'll be to that level. Excuse me. And I think that I do think that Clemson will come away with the win in this one. Now, next up, this is going to be a tricky game here. On the road at Virginia Tech. As a Clemson fan, I'm hoping this is not a night game. I've been in that environment for a night game, and it's going to be crazy either way with Clemson coming to town, but you do not want to play there at night. What are your thoughts on this game, and who do you have winning?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it being in Blacksburg, I've never been, but I know it's a tough place to play. And I like the Hokies this year. Personally, I actually think they could be a dark horse to win the ACC if all things click with Kyron Kyron Drones. I really like what Brent Pry is doing. I mean, I still lean right now Clemson winning, but I think this is actually going to be a pretty tough game. And again, I like the Hokies as a dark horse in the ACC, but I would take Tigers right now.
I agree. I have Clemson winning this game, but honestly, I'm more confident in us going on the road at Florida State and getting the win than on the road to Virginia Tech and getting the win, just because Virginia Tech's offense is so dynamic. They can hurt you through the air. They have a great running back who can hurt you. Drones on the ground can hurt you. I have Virginia Tech. They're my dark horse to make the college football playoff this year, which in same thing as you pretty much said, win the ACC. I think that's the only way they get in. But I think that they could win the ACC. I think they could end up in the playoff, and I think they could win a game or two in the playoff if all things click and go right. I think it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be really tough. This is another one. Klubnik is going to have to play mistake free. I feel like, although it's not as guaranteed because that is the one thing with Drones. He did turn the ball over a little bit last year, so you could get some turnovers in this game. But I think whoever wins the turnover battle in this game is going to be the team that comes out on top. I do have Clemson winning, but I think it's like 55-45 in how I lean Clemson. It's going to be a tough one. Then you go on the road to Pitt. What are your thoughts on this one, and who do you have winning?
Yeah, I mean, Pitt with Narduzzi, I think they lost a decent amount in the portal. I think they're bringing in a new offensive coordinator. I think there's a lot of questions with Pitt, so I don't really see this being too close of a game. I think even though it's in Pitt, the Tigers taking care of business here.
I agree. I have a win here for Clemson. When I look at this game, Pitt just has nothing offensively. They've lost a lot defensively over the last couple of years. I mean, Narduzzi's going to have a solid defense, but it's not going to be great. This is one of those games. I just don't see how Pitt puts points on the board. And that's obviously you can't win if you can't score. I just don't see Pitt being able to put enough points on the board. I think the only way Clemson loses this game is if they kill themselves in this game. And I don't see that happening enough to the point that Pitt can get the win. So I have the Tigers winning this one. Then you get a game against the Citadel, in-state game. What are your thoughts on this one? Who do you have winning?
Yeah, I mean, not too much to say here. I think Tigers should take care of business. I mean, this might be over, by halftime, especially probably running to rest guys for the season finale versus South Carolina, and also depending on how things shape up, right? Because I feel like this is the year now with adding those extra games where we might see more coaches, kind of resting players earlier. So, but anyway, yeah, I think the Tigers should take care of business here.
I agree. I expect most of the starters to be out of the game about halfway through the second quarter. Citadel has a hard time in these kind of games because they run more of a triple option style offense, not full on triple option, but pretty close to it. They're going to have a hard time moving the ball in this game. This should be a game that Clemson wins easily. The starters go in for a few drives and then enjoy the rest of the game from the sidelines. Like you said, just to get prepared for South Carolina, especially if Clemson is going into this game at, what would this be, 9-1, only one loss to Georgia at the start of the season. You're pretty much you're in the ACC championship. You're probably going to be in the playoff, and so you definitely want to get that rest with the extra games for this year. And then you move on. You get South Carolina at home to close out the regular season. Thoughts on this one, and who do you have winning?
Yeah, I mean, I think South Carolina, they'll be a fun team to watch this year with Lenora Sellers. But I think their offensive line, I'm not too high on their offensive line. So I mean, I think last year they gave up over 100 sacks. So I think the Clemson's D is going to have a field day there. So I think, Tigers should take care of this one.
I agree. When I look at the game from last year, Clemson won 16-7 at South Carolina. The offense played about as bad as they possibly could. We really couldn't play much worse. I think the offense will be better this year, and I just don't see South Carolina being able to do much. If this game was week one, I think Clemson wins by 40. I do think Sellers is going to get better over the course of the season. So I think that you will get the best that this South Carolina team is. Here's another thing with playing a team like South Carolina at the end of the season. Usually, there'll be some years they're 4-8, some years they're 6-6, 7-5. But sometimes you catch them, and this could definitely be a year that you catch them where they're 5-7 coming in to play you. So they're fighting to get a bowl game against you. It's a rivalry game. They don't care about a bowl game if they're 6-6. They don't care about a bowl game. They care about beating Clemson, and it's going to be a tough one, I think, in Clemson. I think that they will end up – I think that the Tigers will pull out the win. I could see it being a closer one. I think Clemson wins somewhere like 14 to 17-point range. I don't think you're going to get a huge blowout, but I don't think it's going to be super close at the end of the game either. I think Sellers is going to be a solid quarterback for them. You got Nick Harbor at wide receiver, a guy you got to watch out for. They've got some pieces. I just think, like you said, offensive line issues and really defensive issues for them is what I think hurts them. And so I have the Tigers getting the win there. So let's see. I think I had them 11-1, possibly 10-2, and you had them, I think, at 10-2, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so pretty much agree. I think the only one we didn't quite agree on was Florida State. So I think it's going to be a better season for Clemson. I think they'll get back to that 10-win range. Definitely a team who could win the ACC. I don't think they'll finish any below third in the ACC. I'm just not confident in some of the other teams. We'll see if Clemson ends up in the playoff or not. They're definitely a team that can. But that's going to wrap up today's video. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Comment those thoughts and opinions down below. Help us reach that goal of 1,400 subs by the end of August. Ty, we appreciate you coming on with us, man. Make sure you guys go check him out. I'll put his links in the description and pinned in the comment section. We appreciate everybody tuning in today, and we will see